Welcome to the MVFC First and Goal podcast. I'm Kelly Burke, and today's guest is the former South Dakota standout turned CFL quarterback, Chris Streveler. Valley football fans, of course, know him as the 2017 Missouri Valley Conference Offensive Player of the Year, and he was also a runner-up in the Walter Payton Award voting. Chris, how are you enjoying your off-season so far?
Nice to see some family and friends and get back into America. So I've just been kind of traveling around, spending a little time in South Dakota, spending a little time in South Carolina. I'm in right now where I grew up, so just kind of getting around, visiting everybody, and getting to see family and friends, and that's always nice.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Your first season was really a whirlwind in the Canadian Football League and with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and it really all started in training camp when the starter, Matt Nichols, went down with an injury. So all of a sudden, you become the first rookie quarterback to start a CFL game since 1994. And then your team, you end up a game short of the Grey Cup. So what were the biggest reflections from year one?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did all happen pretty quickly. And, it was kind of crazy. I mean, signing, I signed on, and obviously there was a veteran guy that was the backup as well, and he ends up retiring, right before camp starts. So the backup position's kind of open, and then Matt gets hurt. So then I end up starting the first game, and I guess throughout all of that, my biggest reflection on everything would be probably just my growth, because I ended up starting, the first game of the season and the last game of the season. So, and just the difference I felt between, my level of comfort out there with the Canadian Football League and my teammates and everything like that, and defenses and our offense, I think it was just vastly improved since the beginning of the season. And so I guess that was kind of just my biggest takeaway, was how much I was able to grow and improve as a player and all that throughout the season.
When you were named starter right away because of the injuries, how did you embrace just some of the expectations and pressure that come with that?
I think, the biggest thing for me was just ignoring all the outside noise. A lot of media wants to, build it up and make a story out of it and everything like that. But, the biggest thing for me was kind of just keeping all feelings in-house and in the locker room and what we had with our group of guys. I mean, we had a great locker room with a lot of great veteran leaders, so I kind of just relied on those guys and relied on our coaches to, kind of guide me through the process of starting those games, because I didn't necessarily know what to expect. And my goal going out was just to put the team in the best position I could to be able to win games and just ignore all that outside noise, because at the end of the day, I'm sure a lot of teams say this, but it's really about what you got going on in your locker room, and we had some good stuff going on in there, so they made that transition and that process a lot easier.
How different was playing in the CFL? I think you hear about it, but until you actually go and experience it football-wise, what were some of the football things that challenged you the most rule-wise and just differences from American football?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, like the biggest change from college to CFL is it's professional football now. So, it's a higher level play. The players are faster, bigger, all that. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. But, your rule-wise, with 12 guys being on the field defensively and offensively, offensive schemes and plays are a bit different, and also defensive schemes and calls are a bit different too. So it takes a bit of time to get used to, and there's some stuff that, I didn't necessarily see in the American game that was pretty prevalent in the Canadian game, so I had to kind of adjust to that. And, the other thing that I've talked about in some other interviews and stuff is like the 2-and-out in the CFL is just a lot quicker than the 3-and-out in American game, because the play clock in the CFL is only 20 seconds. So if you have a 2-and-out, you're on like 40 seconds.
Wow.
And it just feels like way quicker than the American 3 for some reason.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like a shock. Like the first game is like, you don't really feel that because you're kind of just repping. But then if you get out in a game and you go 2-and-out, and like you maybe go 2-and-out 2 drives in a row, you've been on the field for like a minute and 20 seconds. And like, 10 minutes in the game has gone by. So like that is kind of a big difference too. So I mean, it is a different game, but it's still football, and the basis of the game is the same.
Yeah, that's crazy. Especially because when you're at South Dakota, you guys, you had a pretty high tempo offense, so you were already playing at a pretty quick pace level. But obviously, like you said, the play clock is shorter, so that's a totally different element. How did you feel like the CFL was a good fit for your style of play?
I think it was a good fit. I think my ability to be able to run around and do some things. Obviously, passing is the most important thing as a quarterback, but to be able to use my legs a little bit and make plays with those, I think it lends itself well to the CFL just because, kind of going back to what I just said about the 2 and outs, like if you have a negative play on first down, you're immediately in second and extra. So you're at second and 12, that's the same as a third and 12 in the American game, and those are going to be really hard to convert. So if you're passing the ball on first down and something's not there, I think if you can do something with your legs to at least get a positive play, then you put yourself in a more manageable second down. So I think that's where, aside from passing, the ability to be able to run a little bit lended itself well just to be able to get some positive yards and then put us in a position to potentially get first downs on second down and things like that.
One of the aspects of your game that always really impressed me when I saw you play in person was your speed. It was always really deceiving, and I think a lot of people, maybe at the national level or beyond, outside of the Valley Football Conference, got a better glimpse of it during your pro day last year or earlier this year when your 40 time, I think it was the fastest out of any quarterback prospect. So where does that speed come from?
I don't know. I mean, I've always been a fast kid, I guess. Growing up, I was always a faster kid, but leading up to that pro day, I really worked with a lot of great people that helped me train. I was doing a lot of stuff there at the University of South Dakota with Cleat, and then Jevin was the strength coach, and then he left to take a different job. I also did some stuff at Sanford Sport with those guys, and they worked with me quite a bit. So I think a lot of that stuff in the 40, in terms of a pro day and that type of stuff, is just kind of beating the test. Obviously getting out on the field, you're not necessarily ever running like a 40-yard dash, so. A lot of that preparation for that pro day is training. Obviously, going into that, you have a little bit of speed to work with, but the hard work that those guys put in really helps it shine on a day like a pro day where you have really one chance to make it happen there.
The other thing that always stood out to me and others is that even though you play the quarterback position, you almost sort of bring a linebacker mentality to it. You were never afraid to take a hit or deliver a hit if you wanted to get that extra yard. And so you don't often see that with quarterbacks, that kind of embracing contact mentality. So is that something you've always had, or did you play defense in high school too, or where did that come from?
Yeah, I think it kind of started growing up, honestly. Like, I always loved football because of the contact. Like, that was always my favorite part of football, and it still honestly is my favorite part of football. Like, getting to hit people and getting hit, I just love it. I don't know why. I know that's not necessarily what probably anyone wants to hear their quarterback say, but it's something that I've always enjoyed about the game. And, I guess, another thing is just like, I see my teammates out there laying their bodies on the line, running backs running hard, receivers, going the extra yards, linemen are getting hit every play. So my thought process is like, hey, I can do that too, because if they're laying their bodies on the line for me and the team, I feel like I should have to do the same thing. So I think that's always just kind of been my mentality, is like, I want to be one of the guys. I don't want to get any special treatment as a quarterback. Like, obviously there are times when it's smart to get down as a quarterback and get out of bounds, and I understand that, but I also understand there's a time and place where it's appropriate for me to try to get extra yards and do things like that. So kind of try to find that happy medium, but it's definitely something that I've always embraced, the contact, and frankly, I kind of enjoy it.
How much do you think your teammates, the different teams that you've been on, from South Dakota to even going back to high school when you're at Minnesota, and then now obviously with the Blue Bombers, that approach and that ability to embrace the contact has helped you win over the respect of your teammates, just being able to put your body on the line despite playing the quarterback position?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point. I mean, I think it kind of lends itself to leadership style. I think every player and every quarterback has a different leadership style, and I think that just kind of lends itself to mine. I guess I consider myself a fiery and competitive player, as I'm sure a lot of people do, and I think that's just kind of the way I've always played the game. And I guess in terms of my leadership strategy or the way that I try to lead it, I just try to be myself, and if that means running around and getting fired up and trying to run guys over, or whatever I got to do, or stand in the box completing passes, like whatever I got, that's kind of my mentality. So I just try to be myself and do whatever it takes for the team to be successful, because at the end of the day, that's what matters. You want to win, and that's how you play the game. So that's really always what I've cared about.
How closely do you still follow South Dakota football?
I follow it very closely. I'm still close with a bunch of guys on the team. I mean, I still text back and forth with the coaches. I was just actually texting with Coach Slofke and Coach Nielsen yesterday. So, I mean, I keep really close touch with those guys. Maybe I'll try to help out this spring ball. I helped out last spring ball while I was training for the pro day. So, I got a really good relationship with Austin Simmons, their quarterback, and all the quarterbacks there for that matter. So, I stay really close in touch with those guys.
That's awesome. What about the rest of the league? Do you still follow what the rest of the league is doing?
Yeah, I do. Just because I feel like I spent 2 years studying every team's defense. So, like, sometimes I'll hit up Simmons or guys on the team and be like, hey, what are they doing defensively? Like, what are you guys thinking this week? And stuff like that. So I really try to stay in touch with it. And obviously, South Dakota means a lot to me. So I try to keep up with the standings and what's going on around the league and all that stuff. And I mean, the Missouri Valley Conference, like, I don't know if it necessarily gets the respect it deserves, like, nationwide, but having played in it for 2 years, like, I can attest to the level of competition, and all the teams are really good. So that's something I can definitely attest to.
What do you make of, now that you're kind of an outsider, so to say, looking in, what North Dakota State's been able to do and the run that they've been able to go on? And, here they are again, 3 weeks out from playing in another national title game.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. They've just got a machine up there. That's the way I can describe it. I mean, the way that they are able to turn over players and still be productive is outstanding. And obviously, I don't know if it's really ever been done at any level, really, like the way that they're doing it. It's a tough team to play against. And I'll tell you what, going into that Fargo Dome is a very, very tough place to play. Those fans are some of the smartest I've ever been around in terms of getting loud when necessary and getting quiet when necessary. So, I mean, it's amazing, and I guess having played in the Missouri Valley, I always root for Missouri Valley teams to do well. I think it just continues to open the country's eyes to how good the conference is.
You mentioned Bob Nielsen, and he picked up his 200th career win this season. And you obviously got to know him on a very close level, a very personal level, more so than just the average fan or even most of us in the media do. So what are a couple of insights that you can share about Coach Nielsen that make him such a good coach and leader?
Yeah, I guess probably the two things would be, number one, just his consistency. Like, day in and day out, you know exactly what you're getting from Coach Nielsen. Like, he wears a collared shirt and a tie every single day. His personality is always consistent. Like, he never gets too up or down. And so that being a quarterback, like, that's the best thing for me, is like, because as a quarterback, no one ever wants you to ride the roller coaster of a game. Like, you don't want to get too high, you don't want to get down. Like, you just want to stay kind of level. And he does the best job of that I've ever seen. So it was really helpful to be able to play for a guy like that. And also, just I guess this is a broad answer, but the other thing is just his character. Like, he's a man of such high character, and he really cares about his players as more than just players, and he just does things the right way. Like, it's just sometimes the college football things can get lost in recruiting and everything like that, but he really cares about his players, and he builds up programs the right way. You saw him do it at all his other schools. I mean, Western Illinois, and he's doing it at South Dakota now, and he just really does things the right way. And that's I know that I'm kind of being repetitive, but he's just a really good person and a really good coach as well.
Sometimes he can come off, like I said, to people on the outside, kind of stoic. And as you kind of alluded to, just he's very even keeled. So it almost kind of comes off as unemotional sometimes. But in my experiences with getting to talk to him and know him a little bit better this year, he's so beloved by his players, obviously, and you can attest to that. But he clearly has, I don't want to say a softer side, but to his players, you get to see a different side of him. So is there a moment or a game or a win that you got to share with him that you got to see kind of a different side than everybody else gets to typically see?
I mean, I don't know if there's one moment. I mean, I guess I remember, like, after we just, like, I remember the press conference, and like he was kind of getting emotional, like talking about how like we fought and everything like that. And I think that like that there like just shows how much he cares about us and how much like he wants us to succeed. And like obviously on a daily basis you hear it from him, and he does things that go above and beyond what normal coaches do, but he really wants you to succeed. And, he's a person that I can really speak for myself, and that's the only person I can speak for. But like, if I ever have an issue or need any help with anything, I feel like I could always reach out to him and he would be there for me to help me out in any way that he could. And, I don't know if there's necessarily one moment, but just like on a daily basis, exactly what you're getting from him and the person you're dealing with. And also just about like the even keel thing, like he is very even keel, but he actually has like a sense of humor that's like kind of dry and like even keel that's like makes it even funnier because he's so even keel, like I said all the time, that when he kind of cracks a joke, it's like actually hilarious because like you're not expecting it at all. So he kind of brings it to that too.
Nice. Yeah, no, it was interesting to see, especially after he got the 200th win this year, because you did see a little more emotion from him. And obviously, I'm dealing with Coach more so in halftime situations. And I mean, you know how it is. Like, no football coach likes to be interviewed at halftime. They just want to coach. Right. And so that's the majority of my experience with him is having to do a halftime interview. But I even find when I talk to him pregame, you get to delve in a little bit more to who he is. So it's funny to see the different sides. My conversation with Chris Streveler continues in just a second, but if you're enjoying this edition of the MVFC First and Goal podcast, check out all the Lineup Media Group offerings, sports and non-sports podcasts. Now back to the show. Chris, as a guy that's been through the Walter Payton Award voting, what is one thing you wish voters would better take into account?
The level of play in the Missouri Valley. I think it's the best conference in the FCS, and I think it's by a large margin. And I might be biased because I played there, but like I know that there's no cakewalk team in the Missouri Valley. I mean, you look at the top to bottom, you got to bring your A game every week, and the bottom keeps getting better and better. Like you see Indiana State this year, they go 1-11 or whatever they were last year, and then they go ahead and win 7 games this year. Like it just keeps getting better and better, and I think that's the one thing that I wish voters would take into account more is, I mean, if there's guys from the Missouri Valley or whatever, like I know Easton Stick is up for it this year, but like that is a very, very good conference playing, and the defenses are legit, and I think that's probably the one thing.
I completely agree. One of my biggest frustrations is that the voters, they vote kind of at the very beginning of the playoffs. And so, it's kind of decided, like we'll just do, since you mentioned Easton, we'll do in his case this year. I mean, Easton is so deserving of being the Walter Payton Award winner, but because he doesn't throw the ball a ton, his stats compared to the other two guys aren't going to be as impressive. But then you look at the run that the Bison have gone on, you look at the way he's winning games. I mean, he's been totally dominant in the playoffs, and you just hope voters see that. But I agree with you. I think there's this sort of misperception of the conference and like you said, how good it is. Yeah.
Well, I think like going to the numbers thing, like especially his case, like he's not going to have like the gaudy numbers that are like going to pop out to a voter. If you actually sit down and like watch the games, if you were to watch the games for the players, like, and I obviously know that the voters are from all over the country, so it's hard to do, but like, I think that would change enough things because like, yeah, he's not going to have gaudy numbers, or like maybe a person from the Missouri Valley might not have the same numbers as another conference, but it's about the way maybe that they manage the game or the way that they play for their team. That might change things or change somebody's vote if they were actually able to see things.
Heading into your senior season at USD, you interned at the Great Plains Zoo. So how did that come about? Because I found that fascinating last year.
Yeah. Well, it actually came about on spring break. I was with like my family and a couple friends, and I was kind of like talking to them about, I don't know if you've ever been to Vermillion, South Dakota, or anyone that's listening, but there's not a whole lot to do there in the summer. So I was like looking for a job and something to do. So like I was kind of talking to my sister, and she's like, and we had just talked about how there was mongooses or something in Jamaica where we were. And I was like, oh, that'd be so cool to see one. She's like, you should do something with animals. Like, I was like, oh, there is a zoo. So basically, long story short, I ended up applying and getting the job, and it was super cool. Like, honestly, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Like, I was on a daily basis, I was working with the tigers, the leopards, wolves, foxes, reptiles, pretty much everything And it was honestly amazing. I got to meet some good people. I actually still keep in touch. Main zookeeper that I worked with a lot, and she's awesome. And sometimes I go back and like visit her and get to see some of the animals that I worked with. And it was honestly just such a cool experience. I'm really, really glad I did it.
That's super cool. What was that dynamic like? You're going probably from doing football conditioning or drills and stuff, summer workouts, to going to the tiger cage, and you're doing it all on the same day.
Yeah, crazy. I was gassed because we would have workouts like at 6 a.m. or whatever, and then I would drive to Sioux Falls, which is like an hour away, work at the zoo till like 30 or 4, I can't remember, and then I would drive back to Vermilion another hour and then do captain's practice. So I was like gassed. But the minute you walk into the zoo and you're like in the cage, you're like tiger hold 4 huge tigers, like you really can't be gassed because you got to be on your toes and you got to know what's going on. Like, so it was really like a unique experience because I mean, how many people get to walk, I'm standing face to face with these tigers and right next to them and, cleaning their cages and holdings and stuff. And honestly, it was just like something I've never done before and a super cool experience.
Did it help you in some regards on the football field as far as opposing defenses? And if you're in a situation where maybe a sack is coming or somebody's in your face and you're about to get drilled, I mean, I would imagine because you're staring a tiger face to face, I don't want to say in a life or death situation, but I mean, in a way, yes. So it maybe gives you a different perspective on taking a hit as a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I'd rather take on any hit than take on a tiger any day. So that probably is something. But I guess like the big thing was like working at a zoo like is super hard work. You're always on your feet all day, like cleaning or whatever. And like I enjoyed the weed whacking, so I would like weed whack all the time. So I was always on my feet like doing stuff. And so, like, I think it actually made me, like, in really good shape this season because I would go from conditioning to then working at the zoo on my feet all day, like, picking up branches and, like, moving stuff and whatever. And then I go back to, the captain's practice after that. So it was like I was doing physical activity literally all day. So I think going into that season, I was in, like, some of the best shape of my life just because I was being tiresome. So, like, on an actual note, I think it actually did help my senior season.
You seem like a very adventurous guy who has some unique interests. And so where does that curiosity come from?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I've never been asked something like that. But I just love, like, doing new things. Like, I love trying new food. I love going to new places. Like, one of my favorite things about being in the CFL this season was, like, getting to explore the different cities. You get to go to, all the major cities in Canada. And, like, a lot of times you get to spend the night there. And, like, you don't really have team activities, so you can go out to eat and stuff. And I just really love doing things like that, trying new things, new experiences, and so that was really, really fun getting to see an entirely new country and things like that. And so yeah, I don't necessarily know where it comes from, but that's kind of always something I've liked doing new things and traveling around, and yeah.
What are some of the favorite things that you've done that have kind of been different or off the grain?
Oh man, well the zoo is definitely number one. Like that's kind of my go-to. I also have a pet snake, so that's kind of something that's a little bit different about me.
Really?
It was kind of like a spur of the moment thing too. Like I always wanted one as a kid. I had a couple salamanders when I was a kid, but I got rid of those. And then, but like one day I was kind of like driving my car and there was like a snake in the street. And so I like picked it up and like moved it out of the street or whatever. And I remembered I like always wanted a snake as a pet, and my mom would never let me. And I was in college. I told my sister, I'm like, all right, we're about to go get a snake today. So we just like traveled around to all these pet stores and like looked at all these different snakes, and like I finally settled on like just a basic ball python. But like that's probably another spur of the moment thing or like adventurous thing where I was like, I'm gonna get a snake today, like whatever. I don't know. So it's just random things like that. Sometimes I don't know. I just like doing that.
Wow. So how big is your python?
He's probably like 3.5 feet. He's not super big, but he's pretty thick. Those things get pretty thick.
Did he go with you then when you were in Winnipeg all this time, or was he back at home?
No, I left him with a friend. I didn't bring him to Winnipeg because I don't necessarily know like the laws on bringing a snake.
Right. Yeah, the border.
So,
you don't want to get arrested.
Yeah, so I was like, the last thing I want to do is like have to go up there for camp and like leave my snake at the border. Like I don't know what that would be like. So I just left him with a friend. I'm gonna pick him up here soon so I can have him for the off season.
That's cool. Whenever post football eventually comes for you, what are some things you can see yourself doing?
I think I have a master's in sport management. My undergrad is in kinesiology. So like something along the lines with that. And I have another internship I'm doing this off season with Sanford in Sioux Falls. And they have like a big field house there, so I'm going to be doing some stuff like training and in their athletic science department, and then I'm also going to be working with them along the lines of like they have a big basketball arena, maybe doing some like marketing, like sport management type stuff. So something along the lines of that. I'd love to stay around sports and athletes and stuff. Yeah, I've thought about coaching. I really enjoy the mental game of football and the preparation. So I think I could see myself doing something like that. But I'm kind of excited for this internship experience, doing a lot of different things and kind of seeing what I like and don't like and where I fit. So I think maybe if you ask me in a year, I might have a better answer to that question.
Yeah, good for you. That's great that you're doing that. This is obviously we're taping this basically a week out from Christmas. So, what are a few of your best Christmas memories with your family?
I mean, I don't know. We don't necessarily do much. Like the one thing that we have done the past couple of years that my mom really enjoys doing is we go to like one of the local homeless shelters and like bring food and like feed them and like clean up chairs and stuff like that. Like so we like to go do that and volunteer. That's something that she kind of got my sister and I into, and we like doing that. But other than that, it's just getting to spend time with family and friends. I mean, all my friends from high school and stuff are home at this time and get to see a lot of old college friends and stuff. And that's something with, everyone's so busy nowadays, you don't necessarily get to do. And, it's kind of my favorite thing is just getting to connect with those people and spend some time with them.
Are you a guy that believes in New Year's resolutions?
Okay, so I did believe in New Year's resolutions. Like I would do them, I would make them, but I am actually reading this book. It's called like the 12-week year. And like the whole premise of the book is like, why would you wait till the end of the year to do what you could if you just restructure your goals for like 12 weeks instead of like cramming everything in at the end of the year? So I'm trying to like take this new approach of like get things done sooner and be more proactive about my goals. So it's funny that you asked that question because I'm kind of trying to like shift my focus on like how I get things done and like my goals. So I don't know if I'm going to set a New Year's resolution this year, but I think I'm just going to be like more proactive about getting the things done that I want to get done. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So who writes that book? That sounds really interesting.
I honestly don't know who it's written by. I just have the audiobook on my phone. It's actually written to me by one of our teammates, and I think like I was kind of talking about this with one of my teammates as well. Is like if somebody recommends something to you, like I always kind of take it to heart because that person is kind of like putting their stamp on it. Like they actually believe in that, like they're not going to take time out of their day to recommend something that they don't actually believe in or think that you're going to love. So like if somebody recommends something to me, I just like, no question. I'll be like, I think I'll read it or like, I'll look into it because you recommended it. So why not? So I don't know who it's by, but I'm enjoying it and I'm happy you recommended it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up. You
Yeah.
you said that you enjoy the mental aspect of sports and football, and so what are a couple of things that have really helped you develop your mental game?
Yeah. Well, I think that really started at South Dakota. I kind of mentioned Coach Schlafly earlier, but he was kind of the biggest one that helped me develop my mental aspect for football. Training, like I've always been motivated to train hard and work out, and that's never been an issue. But like when I got to South Dakota, like my whole thinking about how offenses played and how defenses affected offenses changed, and I really spent like pretty much 2 years in Coach Schlafly's hip pocket, just picking his brain and learning from him. And I wouldn't be in the Canadian Football League right now if it wasn't for all the learning I got to do with him. And I feel like every time I do an interview, I talk about him, but I had no problem doing it because he's such a smart person and put an effort into helping me. And, I think that was really where it took off is just, hours and hours in the film room. Like when I got to South Dakota, I was in my master's program. So all my classes were online. So I would literally just spend like hours and hours every day just watching film because I never had to go to class. So I would just go to the dome and like stretch and roll out, work out, then watch film, go home, watch more film, go to practice, watch more film. Like that was really my biggest thing. And he really helped kind of instill that in me because seeing his knowledge helped like push me and motivate me to be like, well, he knows so much. I want to be on the same page as him in terms of what he's thinking. And, by my senior season, I think we were really on the same page in terms of what we were thinking and going into games and stuff like that.
What would be your advice to those Valley football seniors who are now beginning the process of training for the NFL draft and looking for an agent?
I think the biggest thing is just like do everything you can so you don't have any regrets. Like, and I know that is pretty cliche, but like that's kind of just how I looked at everything for me was like, okay, I can't necessarily control like if I go to the NFL or not because I'm coming out. That's your goal. But like I feel like I trained as hard as I could. I felt like the pro day went as well as it could have for me, and it just didn't work out for the NFL. And I got this great opportunity with the CFL, and I couldn't be happier about that. But my biggest piece of advice, like I said, is just work as hard as you can, and that way when you look back, no matter how it turns out for you, you just have no regrets.
Does it feel now like football is more of a business because you're playing at the professional level? Does there seem like a huge difference between the college game and the pro game in that regard?
It is a bit different. You definitely feel the business aspect of it because when you leave like for the end of the season, like there's a bunch of guys that are free agents, and it's like, well, man, I don't know if I'm going to be seeing you, and like I'm kind of seeing stuff on Twitter and hearing from guys that are getting re-signed, and like I get super excited getting to see these guys that are going to be coming back, and I know I'm going to be sad the guys that don't get to come back. So you do feel a little that business sense. I mean, guys getting cut and stuff, that's not something you necessarily in college, but the one part of football is that it is still fun, and I think that that's the most important thing is you're still playing a game, you still got to have fun with it, and I think I hear a lot of guys say like when it's not fun for them anymore, that's when it's time to be done with it. And I can tell you I'm still having a lot of fun playing football, and especially being part of the Bombers organization. It really is a great organization with a lot of great people, and that makes it that much easier and that much more fun.
Chris, is there anything else that we haven't chatted about that you would want people to know?
No, I think we've really actually covered a lot. Like this was pretty awesome, and you asked a lot of great questions about things that I'm not necessarily used to talking about, but I really enjoy. So this was awesome. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. No, this was a lot of fun. It's great to get to know you better, and I'm just thrilled for all the success that you're having. And I think those of us that followed you and covered you always knew the potential was there, and so it's great to see you getting an opportunity now at the professional level to really showcase all your skills and your smarts. And just want to wish you continued luck and a Merry Christmas to you.
Well, thank you. You too. I really appreciate that.
So if you like what you heard from Chris Streveler and our MVFC First and Goal podcast, take a moment to share, subscribe, and leave a review. Lineupmedia.fm also is home to many other sports podcasts, shows like Fairways and Greens, The Drop, and You're on the Clock. You can also find us on iTunes and Stitcher.